Hello, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of Counterpointless's look, our little retrospective back at the Star Trek series Deep Space Nine.
Bum, 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 bum.
That's how the theme song goes.
Bum, 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 bum.
So last time we took a look at episodes
Sorry.
1 through 6, I think.
Yeah,
or maybe 1 through 5, depending on how you consider the first episode, because it's
Yeah.
kind of a two-parter. But it kind of is presented as one episode on Netflix, and I think even on IMDb. So whatever.
I just want to say that this is the Stevie. Your fucking latch sucks, dude.
All right, no
You
one
had to get it in
no
there.
one else is in on that, so I don't know.
I don't care, dude.
All right, well, go ahead and
explain.
explain it then.
Okay, so TJ paid Stevie to put a latch on her studio door because the animals kept getting in. I mean, like, you guys have probably seen it if you watch fucking Deep Fat Fried. Yujiro or Salvador or some animal will just pop in the fucking show. And so TJ's like, Stevie, can you fix this? And he's like, yeah. Stevie brings a clearly too small latch. And he puts two, just to add insult to injury, he puts 2 of them on the door, and neither of them work. And TJ had to pay him for this. Stevie, you're a fucking scam artist. Come back and put a proper size fucking latch that actually closes the fucking door. Because we're still using a goddamn box of books. You fucking scamming piece of shit. Dude, Paul just keeps laughing because he's.
I can't
look at the latch.
Yeah, the latch is so pathetic. It's like looking at somebody and seeing their little wee-wee hanging out.
I wish I had a picture of this latch.
We'll take one. We'll actually put one in the description, like a link to one, dude.
Here's Scotty and Stevie for reference.
So you know who the principal characters are involved in
Yeah,
this.
Stevie's in the blue, in case you don't know what Scotty looks like. Anyway, so yeah, last time on this Counterpointless of Deep Space Nine, we watched episodes 1 through 5 or 6, depending on how you count them, of Deep Space Nine. Now we're going to take a look at another batch of episodes.
Another helping.
We're going to do a little bit different this time because we're going to look at the IMDb pages, and we're going to kind of talk about the episode, then we're going to kind of talk if we agree with the rating that IMDb has given the episode.
Okay, cool.
And, Paul, I know you don't like to give specific ratings, so you just have to say, like, whether you think the episode should be higher
I can
or
ballpark
lower or
it. It's
ballpark it.
fine.
You know, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be precision shit.
Sure.
So the first episode we're going to talk about is Q-less, which is the only DS9 episode that Q appears in, I believe. I don't think he ever reappears in that series. Does appear on Voyager a few times.
That's kind of a shame.
Yeah, it really is because I feel like he was actually pretty interesting on DS9, but I can understand. I mean, the tone was maybe not of the show is not right for Q. I don't know. Maybe they felt like they already had enough comedy characters or something. I'm really not sure why you don't see Q on the show beyond this.
Yeah, I think reducing Q to a comedy character kind of sells him short. He was
kind of that
terrifying character.
He was kind of that in this episode, though. I mean, I
Well,
don't know.
sure. I mean,
I've always kind of thought of him as a comedic character.
He's
even
got a
though
sense
he
of
is
humor
scary.
wrapped up in what he does, but I mean, his existence is kind of terrifying.
I mean, it's the fact that he has a sense of humor in and of itself is terrifying when you take into account his
power.
Yeah, his power,
Q
his
was one
powers
the
of a
best-
god.
Was one of the most effective characters on the Next Generation, and to see him just kind of used so poorly. I mean, Deep Space Nine did a lot of things better than the Next Generation, especially if you like edgier and darker shows. But they did Q. I don't think they really did him justice.
I'll tell you what, I liked most about this is I think that this episode did a really good job of establishing how different Cisco is from Picard. Even outside of the first episode where they kind of have that clash of personalities. In this one, there's a really great moment where Q is fucking with Cisco and he dresses up like a 1920 style boxer. He's like, come on, let's do some fisticuffs, and Cisco just lays him out. Like, it's a pretty funny moment. Cisco just rears back and punches him square in the fucking face, and Q sets up and said, well, Picard never hit me. And he said, and then
Cisco's just like, I'm not Picard. He kind of growls it. He's like, I'm not Picard.
Yeah, it's a great moment. But outside of that, not a super great episode, unfortunately.
No, kind of middle of the road, especially for a great character like Q. Maybe that's why they didn't bring him back. Maybe they realized, like, maybe this dynamic doesn't work as well.
This one, isn't it like Vash or someone is found?
Well, I'll go ahead and read the synopsis really quick just to jog everyone's memory.
Or something.
The runabout Ganges returns Deep Space Nine in serious trouble. The ship has no power. The hatch can't be opened, and oxygen is running out. Also, there seemed to be an extra person on board. O'Brien is able to open the hatch and recognizes the guest as Vash, a corrupt archaeologist from his time on the Enterprise. Also had a little bit of a romance with Picard in that series. She tells him she's been traveling in the Gamma Quadrant for 2 years and has collected artifacts there. O'Brien, meanwhile, can't find anything wrong with the ship other than the power being drained. Then the same malfunction appears on DS9. Dangerous blackouts are hitting the station. Meanwhile, Vash gets an unexpected visit in her quarters. It's Q, the omnipotent being, and he seems upset. Vash has left him. He wants her back. So this episode is kind of split between this plot about the artifact and Q
hounding her, basically.
The artifact that it turns out one of the artifacts she brought back from the Gamma Quadrant is what's draining the power, and it's about her trying to sell it and interacting with Quark, and Quark running this big auction.
Quark gets treated pretty well in this episode too.
That's a good scene. When
she's
she's doing the whole like history of the artifact and telling him where it's from and where it's made, and he's like,
"What are you doing?"
Yeah.
He's like, "You just tell them how rare it is. They don't want to hear where it's from or what significance it has." Yeah, so he just...
I always love the way they tease Quark throughout the series,
I feel like this is not a bad episode, but it's not really a great one. It's kind it's kind of a middle-of-the-pack episode. There's nothing too dramatic about it. You know what this episode
does introduce, though? The fucking teasing Quark. Like, Quark, so many times with the series, has, like, unimaginable wealth laid in front of him just to be snatched away.
Yeah, that is a recurring trope, and this is kind of the first example of it. Like, ooh, Quark's gonna hit the fucking jackpot. Nope.
Yeah, because the artifact is draining all the power from the station and actually taking them towards the wormhole. It gets up to like 3,000 latinum in the auction. So Quark's like, I'm rich, I'm set for life, and then of course they have to beam it away, so his fortune essentially is gone.
So the episode is sitting at about a 6.8 on IMDb.
Fair.
I think that's a reasonable rating for my money.
I don't know. I'm going to avoid going on a rant about what the fuck does a star mean and what is it in comparison to.
Yeah, we've heard it before, Paul.
So I'll just leave that out and say I guess so. Yeah, I think it might be a little high, but I think it's bumped up by the presence of Q. I think a lot of nostalgia factor there.
I mean, there's a couple of good scenes like we talked about. I think it works at about a 6.8.
Yeah, I might have put it a little lower myself, but that's why I don't do these. So I'm fine with it.
So ballpark, little lower.
I think it's about right.
As a ballpark, yeah, I agree with Paul. I wouldn't rate it that high, but as a ballpark, I'm not in too much disagreement.
I'd probably put it right around there. The next episode is Dax.
Love this episode. Love this episode.
I'll go ahead and just start by reading the synopsis.
I don't agree with the rating, but let's go ahead.
A group of aliens, save that to the end. A group of aliens follows Jadzia Dax and then overpower her. They try to take her of the ship. They mean off the ship, as Commander Sisko is only... All right, go ahead.
I mean, okay, so like Dax gets captured by these aliens and taken to the ship, and it turns out that while she was Curzon Dax, because she's got this worm inside of her, that's Dax. While she was Curzon Dax, she committed some crime, and she's being called to account for it. And it turns out being a really interesting kind of courtroom drama episode about whether or not you can try Jadzia Dax for the crimes of Curzon Dax. And you also get to learn a little bit about Dax the worm, which is really interesting.
I think it's kind of cool. It really helps you, because it's kind of confusing to explain the whole symbiote thing, symbiont or whatever.
Right.
So this episode kind of delves into that and how it works and how distinctive her personality is from her previous incarnations and how it's interpreted by the Trill.
One thing that's really satisfying is the episode starts with, this shows Wesley, Dr. Bashir getting shot down by Dax, and
I
really enjoyed that. And then he kind of creepily decides to go back and walk with her, even though she's like, I'm good. And then he sees her being kidnapped, and they have a big fucking to-do about that. And they rigged the station with a bunch of things to bypass their security measures. And then finally, at the last second, Sisko does some fucking rigmarole, and he fucking hits the tractor beam just as they're leaving, which is kind of the introduction, what Paul said, to this whole courtroom drama thing.
Right.
And it's really interesting that
I gotta say, I love this woman who plays the judge.
She was great.
I remember her from she was in Mrs. Doubtfire at one point.
Well,
she was in
what she's playing too here is that this guy argues because whatever race he's from has a treaty with the Federation, they could have just take Dax. They don't need to have a formal extradition hearing, but it's actually a Bajoran station.
Yeah,
so she comes into play as the Bajoran arbiter,
and she is fucking great in this. She was
really
in Liar Liar with Jim Carrey as well.
She usually plays like a bit part where she's kind of a snooty person.
I think she really.
But
I don't want to
shines
say
in this
she
role.
rose to the occasion of like stealing the show or anything, but she was definitely.
She was a great addition.
She was welcome, and I love her just kind of sassy attitude of where she's taking it seriously, but she's not afraid to be cavalier about her feelings towards what's going on, and she just kind of views the whole proceedings like, all right, I'm the fuck, yeah, all right, I guess I gotta take this seriously because a woman's life's on the line and all, but whatever.
Like she can barely be bothered to deal with it.
This episode might be one of my favorite of the batch of 6 that we watched here. I mean, it's really good. It's interesting. I love the questions raised. I love that the defense, goes with the this is not Curzon Dax. This is Jadzia Dax, and while the symbiont inside of her might be the same, the woman is not, and you can't extradite her for the crimes of something that happened before she ever became what she is.
I think another thing to mention too is that also that you see a strain in the relationship between Cisco and Dax because she doesn't want to reveal information about what happened, about the accusations. So it's good character development for Cisco and for Jadzia Dax. So it's really a great episode. It really enriches the series, and because especially with a lot of stinker episodes so far that we've seen, like they're not really good. They don't really do much. Like the previous episode we talked about, it didn't really add anything to the series, but this episode really does.
There's definitely a lot of filler episodes in this first season.
This is not a filler episode.
Yeah, I always love these courtroom drama episodes in TNG and the few that they did in TES, and it's just as good here. I loved it. It was fun. It was fun to learn more about who's quickly becoming my favorite character on the ship, Dax. So, just the most interesting character to me so far. So, yeah.
Do we want to tell how it wraps up, or we just want to leave that?
I think we'll let it be spoiler free unless you guys feel like there's some reason.
If we
to
gotta
talk
spoil
about that.
something, we will. But,
I'm not gonna go out of my way not to spoil something, but I don't think it really needs to be discussed.
Sure.
The resolution.
Okay. I like that. The resolution is pretty interesting. So 7.1, I don't agree. I would say the episode is at least.
I think it belongs higher up.
I would give it, if I had to put a number on it, I'd say 8.5.
Yeah, I'd be way more comfortable with that. I think this is a really good episode. It's not a classic by any stretch, but
it's not one to miss.
It's in the upper echelon. It's in the upper
especially in this first season.
Yeah,
so far.
as far as the first season goes, this is a standout. I think it deserves a higher than a 7.1. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I agree. I'd put it at like an 8 probably. I think it's a little abused at a 7. So I think an 8 or more would probably be good for it, especially considering its comparison to some of the previous episodes.
Watching Dr. Bashir get punched in the face gives it the extra point.
Yes, that was nice.
That's a nice little touch in the beginning. So.
All right, so this next episode is called The Passenger. And this is a really unfortunate episode in a lot of ways for me.
It's an episode, yeah.
Because this is all about there's a battle and shit, and there's a crash. One of the people in the crash is badly burned and killed. It turns out that they were this criminal named Vantica.
Basically a criminal mastermind.
Who's this criminal mastermind, and this woman who was his pursuer, who was also in the crash or the fight, is like, Vantica is still alive. I know he's still alive. He would never put himself in a situation where he would die like this easily. He's got to still be alive
and
somehow.
Just kind of going,
and
really?
Then stuff starts happening on the station where they're like, maybe this Vantica dude is alive, even though they can see clearly his dead body. So they developed this theory that, maybe he's somehow jump bodies, and they think maybe he's in the investigator.
What really sucks
But then it turns out that he's in Bashir, and that's when it all just kind of falls apart.
What really sucks about this episode, too, is that describing it, even having seen it several times, it sounds really interesting, but it's just really...
I feel like it was really interesting until
Bashir
fucks it up. because I feel like the build up to Vantika was cool, and then when Bashir is revealed to be Vantika, he's like, I am Vantika.
Yeah. It's really overblown. And
I talk like this because I am evil.
Did an absolutely abysmal job switching to Vantika. He just was so far off the mark. It was laughable. Like they should have scrapped it. Like seeing him do it, the performance. Like the director here, Paul Lynch, should have just been like, "Cut, no, we're writing someone else."
We gotta write someone else in this part.
It's already
the guy that plays like Garek. He could have pulled it off.
It's already based on a lame fucking premise, though. I mean, just the body switching bullshit. I don't know. It's just the concept.
Trite, but it could have been done well.
Well, no, but maybe it could have been done better. But
what I think was promising about the concept. The body switching thing is not the cool thing. It was just how much they were building up, like how badass Vantika is. So I was thinking, like, oh yeah, man, Vantika, he's gonna be crazy.
Instead,
and then it's like,
you will
I am evil. I'm like, oh, okay, he's got just generic villainitis.
Can you
whatever.
Play some of the audio of him as Vantika? Is that possible?
Let me see if I can find. Some of
not only this.
I think people need to hear this. It is so awful.
Like who Vantika? Like I knew who Vantika was going to be from the first scene.
Yeah, of course.
It's telegraphed. Like
because Bashir's the one who's holding him when he dies, and
Bashir is attending to him as he dies, and he grabs him and goes, "Make me live," and then he dies, and then shit starts happening on the ship, and you're like, "Oh, Bashir is Vantika," and he is, and it sucks. The reveal sucks. The final scene is just nonsensical. Like
they've
got him trapped in a tractor beam, and he's firing the impulse engines, countering the tractor beam.
You could if you go, if you did this, if you went open Netflix and because you're just playing the audio, you're not actually gonna.
Yeah, I guess I could find it there.
Yeah, because but
like, no one. Strangely enough, no one has felt it worthy of uploading on YouTube.
I mean, this just really.
I don't blame them.
Just typifies why. I mean, Bashir at this point is the series Wesley. He's just they insert him so much, the actor just cannot pull it off. He's trying his damnedest, but it feels so. It really just. I think the best way to put it is like how the Wesley just doesn't connect with the character. Like, he just doesn't get it. Yeah, like this is him as being Vantika, and he just does this wide-eyed, goofy, over-the-top, I'm evil performance. And it's like
snidely whiplash villain performance that just doesn't play well at all. With a little bit of subtlety, probably could have been cool, but
could have at least been serviceable. I mean, maybe it doesn't have the potential to be some kind of fucking great episode, but it certainly could have been better than it was. I think there was at least a little more potential there than that.
Like the voice he uses is just.
Sorry, there was some Netflix shit playing over us for a second there. Because Netflix now, whenever you open it, plays some bullshit.
Great. Thanks, Netflix.
But it wasn't for that long. Why? Shouldn't it? Here we go.
Yeah, we're going to pull up the episodes. You guys can hear
all because you just want to hear this stupid fucking audio.
People need to hear how bad this is, dude.
It is bad.
I mean, if nothing else, if you skip this episode, which I wouldn't even honestly blame you, because it doesn't advance the story in any way. I mean, it doesn't help develop Dr. Bashir's character at all, which I don't think at this point really want to be developed, but I mean, they kind of do something interesting with his character later on, but in these early seasons, he's almost just unbearable.
I mean, I will be honest, I've been watching season 2, and he is a little bit better already. Still not great, but
it takes a few seasons for him to even get serviceable as a character. I mean, just early on, he's just like, he's cringeworthy. Almost every scene he's in.
All right, let's see if I can find the scene where I am Vantika, raw,
evil.
You cannot even believe.
He's just such a generic villain. It's painful. He's painfully generic. I just can't believe that this was taken seriously. And I mean, Star Trek has definitely had some really bad acting in it, so like I kind of get it, but this just goes beyond the pale. This is bad for Star Trek standards.
That's Quark talking to him.
Oh.
Not at all, gentlemen.
So this is the big reveal that Bashir is Vantika.
I've been expecting you. Dun, dun, dun!
Terrible. Boo.
Dun dun dun.
So what did IMDb
what's-
say about this turd?
It's less than fucking.
IMDb says 6.4.
No,
I would
no.
say
Way too high.
I would say this deserves
like a
lower than
3.
that. Yeah, I would say this is really, unfortunately, pretty bad.
It needs to be way lower.
I don't
than that.
I don't give out really ones unless it's just total schlock. But I mean, this is like a 3.
I really don't know what people like in this episode.
I mean, we can go take a look and see if anyone explains one of their high ratings. A good episode, but the crew seemed stupid here. Whatever.
All right, yeah. Who cares?
Yeah, there
they're
you go.
wrong. You think this episode is good? You're wrong.
If you think this episode is good, you're wrong.
Yo, wrong. Oh, this is the worst.
Wow.
This is way worse even than the last one.
To stinker. This is the worst episode of the first season so far by a long shot.
This is the worst episode of this series, in
Is
my
it really?
opinion. Yeah. I would.
Wow.
I mean,
Well,
there's
I guess
other
that's good.
episodes I don't like, but this is. I mean,
This
I
is
can't
one of the
think.
worst
I can't
ones.
think of a worse fucking episode than this.
I can't recall every single episode, so I'm not going to go that far. But I will say it would easily be in the top 3.
To me, this is the worst fucking episode.
This is a lazy episode. So these aliens known as the Wadi show up from the Delta Quadrant, and all they
Gamma.
want to
Gamma.
do is gamble.
Gamma
So they go to
Quadrant.
Quark, and Quark, being the stupid ass he
Cheats
is,
them.
cheats them. And they get mad, and they're like, we're going to play another game. So they bring out their special game.
Look at these fucking aliens, by the way.
They suck. They're just normal human beings with purple shit on their heads. I
And
mean, it's
mullets.
I feel
I
like
love
that-
the mullet.
The mullet races, yeah.
I feel like this episode was written in one fevered night of cocaine-fueled writing.
Oh shit, we need an episode.
Fuck, man, we spaced off a whole episode. All right. It's just terrible from start to finish. So anyway, the game that they play kidnaps several primary members of the crew and sends them to this other dimension where they're pawns in the game. And Quark slowly learns as he's playing the game that he's in charge of their fate and that they might die in there. And he, gets more and more anxious about playing as he goes along.
Yeah, they totally reduce Quark's character. Like you said, Paul, they have a scene where Quark begs, it's like, oh, please don't. It's like, so.
It was awful seeing him reduced to that. I mean, it's just like, and there was the build up to it made no sense. He just all of a sudden is turned into a blubbering, groveling, sniveling mess, which is everything that his character isn't. I mean, he might do that if there's profit in it, but this there are ways to show that Quark cares
Or if
about
his life is on the line.
Right.
But he's not going to do it for, I understand he doesn't want them to die and he has some affection for the people that, on the ship, or the station. But he's not going to.
That's not how
Quark is
would
not
deal
going to
with it.
fucking be reduced to a blubbering mess by that.
Yeah, well, Quark's gonna actually fucking try to figure out an angle so that he can keep them alive, not go, please.
I mean, it's a terrible scene.
And
too.
here's the dumbest thing about this episode. So they make you the whole time like, are they gonna die? And they just do a total cop out. Nope, because they all do end up dying in the game, but they're fine.
Yeah, it's just a game. It's so stupid. This would have been think about this. First contact with an alien species. They come onto your fucking shit. They kidnap the senior officers of your fucking space station and put them through psychological torture for 6 hours straight. Then they just get to leave? No. These people would have been fucking taken custody of and shit. I mean, I don't know. None of this makes sense. Quark isn't the only character reduced to a fucking just total mess.
What about that weird hopscotch scene where they're like,
Oh god.
Well, Kira is one of the ones that's in the game. And I don't know if you guys noticed it in this episode, but I know she's a hothead and all, but she's reduced to just a totally unlikable, pedantic, angry, temper tantrum prone piece of shit in this episode.
none of the characters are written well. None of them are written right. It's just really bad.
The only one that even seems like himself is Cisco. Cisco, maintains a little bit of command, but it's like Kira just falls apart immediately, which doesn't seem anything like her. She's this hardened, freedom fighter. You'd think she'd be cool and icy under pressure, but instead she just turns into an emotional fucking wreck.
Yeah, Quark is just
Quark
totally
is just a
wrong.
total breakdown. Totally not a Ferengi in this. Has no he actually chooses not to double his profits like several times, and I'm just like, what is going on?
No fucking
Because like
way,
at some
dude.
point he's given these choices. He's like, yeah, if you send him down the hard path, double your profits. If you send him down the easy path, your profits stay the same.
Nope, safe path.
And he takes the safe path like 3 times. I'm like, what? Did they kidnap Quark and put him in the game too and replace him with a clone? This is a terrible episode. It's boring. It's lame. I don't know what else to say about it, honestly.
I mean, 5.9.
5.9 is doing it way too much goddamn
This
justice.
episode is a 1. This episode is like, if you skip this episode, you'll thank us.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, honestly, unless you're just a total completist, skip it.
Yeah, it's not gonna.
It's not worth it.
Advance the main
If anything,
storyline.
I mean, it does worse than not advance
It actually
things. It
takes it
actually
backwards.
detracts from characters that
Yeah,
you
it
might
actually
like.
damages the characters of the show. Do not
Yeah.
watch this episode unless you just
It's
absolutely have to see it
garbage.
for completion's sake.
It's hot garbage. Fuck this episode. It just occurred to me there's a lot of Quark-centric episodes right in a row around this part of the series. This one's a much better episode than the last one.
This is a great
This is actually one of my. It's definitely. I mean, there's quite a few Ferengi episodes. This is not one of my favorites.
It's good.
Because
For the
they
first
hadn't
season,
really,
it's really good.
They hadn't got the but this is kind of the template for the Ferengi type episode, and I think it's really good.
Zek is great.
I love the dude who plays Grand Nagus Zek, who you can see right here.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great character actor too, and he's in a lot of shit.
Yeah, he is, and he's fucking really great here. Just this lecherous, fucking wrinkly, ancient Ferengi.
He's basically the ultimate, oil railroad baron character that just has all the angles figured out.
It's the godfather to the Ferengis, basically, and he shows up on the station having a meeting of the Ferengis to discuss who's going to get what in the new Delta, who's going to get to take the Ferengi profit hunting empire into the Gamma Quadrant.
Yep.
And basically the whole show, this whole episode is about him kind of setting up a test for who is going to be his. It's basically him testing his son.
Yeah, he fakes his death.
And
appoints Quark, the new Grand Nagus, to kind of test his son to see what his son will do. His son conspires with Nog, Quark's brother, to kill Quark.
Nog is
the son.
Yeah, Rom.
Not Nog.
Rom.
I'm sorry, Rom. Rom, Quark's brother, to kill Quark by shooting him out of a fucking airlock.
Dude, it's beautiful. Oh, they have other assassination attempts too.
Yeah, there's other ones.
So Quark suddenly becomes the center of power, and of course Quark is not equipped to handle the machinations of these Machiavellian, Ferengi all around him. So it's Quark just trying to bumble his way through it, just desperate, doesn't know what to do. It's really a great episode.
There's also a great side plot with Nog, the little boy Ferengi, and Jake Sisko.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right too.
It's kind of cool. Nog gets kind of swept up in all the Ferengis being around, and he's going to school now, and that's a big no-no in Ferengi culture. Just a waste of time because there's no profit in it. So he ends up getting taken out of school, and there's a little side plot where Jake, helps Nog to keep learning even though he can't go to school, and it kind of develops their characters pretty well too.
And there's a whole thing about Sisko trying to kind of split them apart as well.
Right. At first, he thinks they're a bad influence on one another, like everybody else does. But then
they have that moment where he finds him in the cargo bay tutoring Nog because his parent is. Oh, that's right, because there's a scene where the Nagus comes in, it's like he's learning, and they're like, no, we forbid you to learn and go to school any further.
Yeah,
and Jake is like, going to help his buddy
he's
out.
going to a school and being taught by a female, and like the Grand Nagus is like, you permit this? You permit this to happen?
I love the fucking voice he uses.
Anyway, at the end, the Grand Nagus, of course, reveals himself to still be alive and chastises his son for not doing the proper thing. He's like, no, you shouldn't have tried to kill Quark and take the fucking throne. You should have accumulated power quietly and only killed him when the time was right,
Oh yeah, that was beautiful too. How Quark's life was seen as disposable by everyone. Well, it's funny too because Quark actually respects his brother, who he shits on the entire fucking series, but he actually respects him for trying to kill him. It's like, you know what? I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know why Odo wasn't like, okay, that's attempted murder. You're going to jail now.
Nah, a little fun with
I guess
the
he's just
Ferengis.
like, Ferengis. That's how they are. You know what you do.
Ferengi's gonna Ferengi.
Probably
What are you
because he
gonna
doesn't
do?
give a shit if he is killed or not.
Yeah, that's probably true.
That's probably the real answer to that one.
No harm, no foul. I think this episode, I'd probably rate it a little bit higher than a 7.1.
7.5 for
I'd say, maybe 7.5, something like that. But yeah, I think it's a pretty fair rating. Paul?
I'd put it up a little higher than that, honestly. I really enjoyed this episode. I love the look at Ferengi culture. I love that there are more Ferengis around than usual in this episode, so there's a lot more. I really love the species, so whatever.
Well, one thing I can tell you is for sure is as the series progresses, they do a lot more in depth.
Well, they're smart.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wait till you see little green men, dude. That's my favorite.
Oh, dude, that's a great episode. So yeah, but let's.
But I'd put it up a little higher than a 7.1.
So you give it about
maybe a 7.5, 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Respectable.
This next episode is called Vortex. Man named Croden tells Odo he can... Okay, so this is... there's a criminal on the station. He ends up killing someone in a firefight. He's imprisoned. Someone vows revenge against him. He's trying to convince Odo to let him escape the station because he keeps tantalizing Odo with, like... Odo doesn't know what his people are, where they're from, so he's kind of tantalizing him with...
This is an okay episode, I would say. I don't think it's great.
I could tell you about your people,
And I don't think it's bad, mainly because it gives Odo some more character development.
I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to learn more. I'm sure we do eventually about, but it seemed like they were setting up that Odo was going to get to learn a lot more about what he is and where he came from. You don't really get that in this episode.
Yeah, it's just another crumb on the trail.
I guess this will have to kind of spoil the ending, but what ends up happening is that this dude ends up helping Odo out, and Odo finds out that he's in charge of transporting this prisoner back to his home planet, where he'll surely be killed or tortured or whatever the fuck. And this dude ends up revealing to Odo what his real plan was, which was to save his daughter, who was being pursued for political reasons on his planet. When you speak out against the status quo, the punishment is they come kill your family. So he's gone to all this effort to keep his daughter safe. She's in a cryostasis chamber and shit on this asteroid in the middle of a nebula. And Odo kind of sees the human side of him. But there's the way that he gets away with it at the end, they manage to elude the people that are pursuing them, and Odo and this dude and the daughter get out. And as they're getting away, this fucking Vulcan science vessel hails them and is like, "Hey, is everything all right?" And Odo's like, "Oh yeah, I've got 2 people here I saved from that explosion back there. Can you just take them to Vulcan?" And they're like, "Sure." There's no paperwork, no transfer, nobody's gonna look at the fucking logs on the runabout that Odo's using and see that he beamed 2 people off the ship before he went back through the wormhole. None of that exists, and so
that's why I said there's some elements that are interesting in it, but I just don't feel like it delivers.
I'm not too keen on the whole criminal rogue, but with a heart of gold thing that they do here either.
Well, I thought it was interesting because up until that point, they make you kind of believe Odo is not really willing to bend the rules or change or be at all flexible. And this
that is true.
He kind of can do that under the right circumstances. He believes this guy is getting a broad deal, so he's like, you know what, fuck it. I think the just thing to do is actually to let you go.
Well, earlier on, though, he falls for the obvious scam, which doesn't seem like Odo at all, even with the promise of hey, I know where your people are from, and I know where you can find more people like you. It's just obvious that that's not what's going on from the very fucking start to everybody but Odo.
But somebody can be taken in by something they really want.
I just didn't think Odo was one of those types of people. I thought Odo would be able... Odo's he deals with Quark on a day-to-day basis.
Well, but I think, too, I would argue that seeing that amulet or the pendant that can change, I think that kind of makes it...
Added a little credibility to the story.
Yeah. So you can see this, and he sees it, and he's like, okay, this is kind of something similar to me. Maybe there is more to this guy's story.
Sure.
So because he is kind of skeptical, too. But there's also this overwhelming desire in Odo throughout the first few seasons to find out more about his past, which is something they write into the character. So I do think it kind of makes sense for the character having more knowledge about the series. but from your perspective, I can kind of see where you're coming from.
Yeah, it just learning a little bit about Odo that I don't like.
Yeah. 7, I think, is probably a little high. I would give it a 6.
Yeah,
I think it's a little high too.
I'm more in that ballpark myself. I think it's a little bit overrated here. I think it's just kind of a middle of the pack episode for me.
Middle of the pack episode. I think that's fair.
Watchable, doesn't really offend me, but I'm not really super into it either. Just kind of a pastime.
A disappointing episode coming off the heels of the Negus episode, though.
Yeah, for sure. This next episode is called Battle Lines. This episode I really do not like. I don't hate it like I hate the what was it called? The Come Along Home or whatever the fuck, or Move Along Home or whatever the fuck that shit was. I don't hate it to that level, but I do hate it. I don't really know why. It's just kind of lame. You know, I don't really give a shit about Kai Opaka or what she means to her people and all that shit. There's some really bad, over-the-top acting by Kira in the scene where Kai Opaka
There's a lot of plot,
dies.
like more security plot holes. So basically, Kai Opaka takes up Sisko on his offer for a tour of the station, and she's never left Bajor. She's this holy leader that's very important.
She's
to her
basically
people.
like the Pope of Bajor.
Sisko met her in the first episode.
Yes.
So anyway, she comes to the station the first time she's ever left Bajor, and she's like, "Oh, I really wanted to go through that wormhole." And he's like, "Well, you know, there's nothing real scheduled to go through that today, but if you want, I'll take you through." So it's like 3 of them. It's him, the Dr. Bashir, and Kai Opaka get on a fucking roundabout.
Kira.
Oh, Kira, sorry, yeah. Get on a runabout and go through the wormhole. That's it. With the spiritual leader of the Bajoran people. They go through a wormhole into an unexplored quadrant of space where there might be hostile entities. And, of course, they get shot down by some fucking moon that they go to investigate.
Yeah, there's basically a satellite grid on this moon, because what happens is they get like a sensor alert, and it's like, they're like, "Oh, we better go back." And she's like, "No, we must follow the will of the prophets," you know. So they go, they do the shuttle crash lands on the planet episode, and then they got to get out of some situation.
Yeah, and then on the planet, there's these 2 warring factions that have been sentenced to this weird prison where they have to go to
names. I think it's like
they have to go to war with each other eternally, and every time they die, some kind of weird nano matrix bullshit brings them back to
some
life.
Nanotechnology bullshit or whatever brings them back to life.
Off the planet, they wouldn't be able to live anymore, I guess.
Yeah, so Kai Opaka is killed in the crash.
Yeah, and then
then she's regenerated by the moon's biological field or whatever. And they find out. So the whole episode, the message is a little heavy-handed. It's obviously this anti-war episode. Why can't we all just get along? War is meaningless episode. And it's really just drilled into it, because it really is meaningless on this planet. There's these 2 factions that are just endlessly killing each other, and then they all come back to life, and they're just suffering, and they can't come together.
It's just showing how it's just bias and prejudice, and how it's innate, and how like they can't even like they said, they have a point like, "Why are you guys fighting?" It's like, we can't even really remember.
But it's just heavy. It's just heavy-handed. It's not clever.
It's too preachy. It's too heavy-handed.
It's way too focused. I mean, like, it's way too focused on Kai Opaka, who's not interesting.
He's a boring character. And
Kira, like I said, when Kai Opaka dies for the first time, it's really cringy. Her over the top.
And the end is basically that they find a way. O'Brien and Dax go looking for them. They find them. They basically find out the grid is in place, so they can't just beam them off the planet. They find a way to take out one of the satellites. They basically beam them off. Kai Opaka is going to remain behind because she leaves, she dies, and she's like, "No, this is my spiritual mission," and you just don't really care. It's like, so long, farewell. You're lame, and so is this episode.
I mean, not only that, but just think about the implications here. So they get shot down on this moon. The most important person on Bajor is now missing.
Yeah, missing.
And they send the engineer and the science officer from the space station to go look for them alone.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense from a diplomatic standpoint that the commander of our space station very irresponsibly took this very important person off the planet and got her. So now he has to go back to the Bajorans and go, "Oh, I'm sorry, your Kai Opaka now lives on a prison moon in the Gamma Quadrant because I fucked up." I fucked up and I wasn't thinking, and I got too close to it, and she got shot down, and she died, but it brought her back to life. But if we take her off the moon, she's dead. So I'm sorry, yeah. So
She's
mea
stuck there
culpa.
now.
What's funny too is that in the first episode, he's trying desperately, and he needs her help to prevent a civil war in Bajor. And I think this is kind of sloppy writing because it doesn't really affect the show. I mean, it does to a little bit.
Well,
later.
it does. Yeah, it does later on.
But it doesn't have the immediate impact of like no one's like panicked like.
There would be a fucking diplomatic meltdown between the Bajoran government and the fucking Federation over this.
Yeah, and it doesn't really happen.
Think if like Trump took the Pope golfing and he got eaten by a fucking alligator or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, it would be a nightmare. But I haven't watched any episodes beyond 12. This is the 12th episode, I think, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is like if this is even referenced in the next episode, but I'm guessing it's not.
No, it's never mentioned again.
Wow.
It's never mentioned again.
So this is a really bad episode in my estimate. I really didn't like it at all.
No, it's a bad one. I would say for me, 6.6 is way generous on this.
Super generous.
This is about a 3. I would.
This
say.
is like a 3, maybe like a 3.5 tops.
A 4 on a good day if you're just feeling really generous.
I mean,
But-
if you want to bang the chick that plays Kai Opaka, maybe a 4. You know, that's about the best you can.
That's about it, you know.
Yeah, I don't know who the hell would rate this higher than a fucking.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't deliver on
like
any of the
even if you're
promises.
just a generous person, I don't see how you give it more than a
And Paul
5.
made a really great point. The continuity of the writing in the series, it doesn't really work as an episode because.
Yeah, I mean, she was introduced as she's super instrumental, and then a few episodes later, she's gone. No one cares.
She lives on a prison moon now.
It's really bad writing. It's really bad series continuity, and this is why the first season I think gets a lot of shit, and I think rightfully so.
It was I mean, like from what we just watched, it was a grab bag. There was a couple of good, couple mediocre, and couple of really bad.
But the really good thing about DS9 that they really did, and I felt like, is that when we as we review the later episodes and the later seasons, is that they learned from a lot of these mistakes in this first season.
Well, I'm glad because this type of shit.
It's not to say there's not still bad episodes in each season.
I'm willing to suspend my fucking disbelief, but you got to meet me halfway on that shit.
I can honestly say.
Well, I started getting way ahead of you guys. So I'm like midway. Maybe even a little bit more than midway through season 2 at this point.
Wow.
I could say like it's way.
I'm
marked.
done with season 1.
There's a marked fucking increase in quality.
By next week, we should be done with season.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's only 19 episodes in this season, so we're at 12 now. So we could probably finish it off in the next one.
Well, I think we did say that we were going to give unless you don't feel the season finale for this one needs its own episode.
I don't think it does.
Okay.
I think you can just discuss it in the natural course.
And the other ones, I think they might consider doing that. But this
yeah,
one,
well, season 1, I mean, they weren't sure if they were going to get renewed. It's pretty obvious.
Fair enough.
So, but I do think the season finale of this season's good, but we'll get to that when in the due course of time.
So next week.
So see you guys next week, next Tuesday. We'll have watched the rest of the season, and we'll let you know our thoughts on each episode. If you want to check out the previous episode, I'll link to it in the description. We'll put it in a playlist or something. It'll be easy to find. All right, thanks you guys for watching, and see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.